Well, everyone, welcome to a special live recording of Manufacturing Happy Hour. My name's Chris Lukey, host of Manufacturing Happy Hour. I'm excited today to be joined by my co-host, Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial, and of course, Jerry Perez, Executive Director of Global Accounts for Fanuc America, which kind of leads us, that's going to be my second question. I'm going to get there in a second, but my first question is, this is Manufacturing Happy Hour, so it's meant to be a candid conversation that you might have with someone over a drink. So if we had a beverage in front of us, what beverage would that be?
It would be, since my mother may be listening to this, it'd be water. No, it wouldn't be. Yeah, it used to be any type of brown liquor there was, but now it's Irish whiskey, very specific.
All right.
Yeah. It's not as detrimental. I've got a couple kids now. You got to be able to, function a little bit longer.
Yeah. So say we're having this conversation over some good Irish whiskeys. I feel like this is a question that would come up as a result of that discussion is Jake and I were chatting about this earlier and we realized we didn't actually know the answer. So the question everyone wants to know is, how do you officially pronounce Fanuc?
Well, you're saying it the proper way now.
Okay.
Because we know maybe 60% of the marketplace pronounces it as
Fanuc, which is what I had learned it up until this morning. So I just got corrected on this today.
Yeah, well, when you can talk to a customer and they're saying Fanuc, but you say Fanuc over and over again and they keep saying Fanuc, you kind of just go with it. See, we actually, there was a very big push in the early 2000s for us to correct that in the marketplace. And it got corrected.
Okay.
For about 4 years. And then the marketplace said, we don't care what you say. We'll buy your robots, no problem, but this is what we're going to call it. So we just kind of go with it now.
It's funny how branding kind of works itself out like that many times. And, I've been asking you a series of intro questions, but I'm going to hand it off to Jake to ask our first official question of the interview.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some really interesting numbers that came out by A3, the Association for Advancing Automation. I'm going to list them here right now. So in 2021, we saw a 28% rise in industrial robot sales here in North America. In fact, it made a record by selling almost 40,000 units. And what we saw was that there was, for the second year in a row, non-automotive applications are the ones that led the industry in terms of new robot integration. What do you think is the largest driver of non-automotive applications with robotics?
Sure. There happened to be a global pandemic. I think we might remember, that. And a lot of people were buying things where? Online. There's a huge driver. I mean, in some marketplaces, some countries where online commerce wasn't it doesn't have the same foothold it had in the US. It grew 20% in certain countries all by itself due to the pandemic. I mean, that's a huge, huge growth sector in online commerce for sure. But truth is, since 2016, we've been seeing that switch over from typically, yes, automotive heavy. You think of robotics, yep, automotive. And the other part of that is where people have been coming from in the general industry market was from where? Automotive. So you've got the definitely e-commerce industry. Pandemic grew the med device market. I mean, how many COVID test kits were being produced? How much money got created into automation, into the success stories of ventilators getting automated, produced automatically or with automation and robotics. And that had to happen overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. The metals industry was up 91% with robotics since 2020. The other thing, we are at IME West, which is 5 different shows, MD&M, Plastech, ATX. And a lot of I would say 60% of the show here is medical-based plastics and in the industry. In fact, when we look at it, life sciences, pharma, and biomed was up 40% with robotics applications in 2020. I mean, that's a massive number where you're seeing more and more companies turning to automation as their source of manufacturing.
Absolutely. I mean, I say we, like us, whatever youngins, we were predicting in the early 2000s, there's going to be a gap in the labor market in 2018, 2020. There happened to also be a pandemic, right? In terms of workforce, the Great Resignation, we've all heard that come out, right? So there was already a large gap in trying to fill the manual labor market. People just don't want to fill these jobs. I mean, that's kind of the truth. There's also there's a gap, and then the people realize they can take time off, and all the people that left the industry, we're since 2020, our fake, our phones ringing off the hooks. Kind of true. Companies are saying to us, large manufacturers, we can't fill 30% of our workforce doing these jobs, which typically you would think would be filled. Good paying, advanced manufacturing type jobs. And now those are a lot of applications where, hey, let's put a robot in front of that machine now. There's some applications where we can now do that with collaborative robots now that make it more easily, able to, do some of these other operations that you can't fill, jobs with.
So I've got a question, and then I'm going to hand it back to Jake after this. But something you brought up in your last answer, you're talking about the new applications, right? I'd love to hear a particular application that Fanuc has gotten into recently that you're particularly excited about. Maybe if you can present it to us in the context of the problem it solves or a story, that would help the audience out there.
Sure. When it's, late at night, you've had a couple happy hours. Everyone likes to go to, there's, a castle of a certain color. Cool application in the back. You never realize now that there's might be a robot back there, manning the fry basket. That's a cool application so one of the markets that I happened to study in the 2010, 2012 was this food market. Not just regular food market and the factory food market, but the thought was, how come this isn't automated yet? You go into a fast food place, you look back there, and the food, those companies have designed these manual people, basically acting like robots. Why is that not, automated yet? And I think part of that is with labor costs going up, labor shortages. Wow, the reason and why to automate now seems a heck of a lot better because it's just that much easier to justify today. Can't find the labor force to do it. Costs are higher. Wow, now is a good time to do that. And that's why in the technology, it's not where we're creating something brand new to go into the back of a kitchen there. So it's interesting. Okay, 8 years ago, you studied this. How come it's not out there yet? You don't know if you were to go back into some of these fast food joints and see robots back there. I'd say give it 5-6 more years, and all of a sudden that adoption rate's going to be, climbing that steep curve in that marketplace. I'm not talking about, the marketplace that everybody talks about for cool applications, AI picking, singulation and sorting and all, you guys can cover that in another trade show, but in this one, I would point to that as a very cool, application that robots to come to interaction with you in your regular daily life, right? People are, hey, where's my Jetsons? Where's my Rosie? Right? Different marketplace, but I think you're going to start to see some more of those industrial robots start to be in, showing up in your grocery store, showing up in, a fast food joint, restaurants, things like that in the service industry.
I think that's one of those things that we've seen the pandemic create is really a perfect storm of this transformation of automation into people's lives at a lot quicker pace. With, like, as you mentioned, e-commerce was this massive growth. And the reason, that took a boom so quickly is because it was already going to transform into that industry. E-commerce was eventually going to take place of where everyone was buying it. I just think, in my opinion, the pandemic really propelled that forward 5 years or even a decade. And we experienced this massive demand for automation that was going to happen in 10 years and 18 months.
Absolutely. We've had record growths, right? If there's a marketplace, a market where you have, in a pandemic, record growth the first year, and then the follow-on year, additional record growth thereafter. Why is that? It is that absolute magnification of that shortage of labor. It's the magnification of a certain market sector that's booming. Everybody was you weren't going to the store anymore. You could get there's automation in the back of a lot of, these super stores, right? People don't know there's actually automation in the back there doing, stacking and picking and placing and getting your stuff ready to prepare for you. Automated, food delivery, food service to get that stuff prepared. It's people may not realize it's not just in the big factories, distribution centers. It's actually in your local store nearby.
My local Meijer, which I'm out of Grand Rapids, where Meier's headquartered globally.
Yep.
A lot of their stores are rolling out now. They don't realize has an automated storage, an ASRS system, pre-building their what they call shipped packaging, where if you go online and you order your grocery list, it's being a lot of times fully automated, assembled, and packaged for them without an operator doing that. The next thing I want to talk about is robotics and automation is a general concept where we've seen it a lot in the automotive industry, but it's becoming a lot closer to people. And I think people are interacting on it in a different way. For people who are worried about robots and, not necessarily from the fact that they're going to take over the world, that's not a discussion I want to have. But in terms of risk of how do you keep a worker safe near a robot? What are new applications or products that Fanuc is putting out to address, I could say, those worries or risks that a lot of first-time users would ask about?
Sure. Well, we've come out with our, which is now the largest collaborative robot, series in the marketplace. It's not necessarily something new, but as technology gets adopted or more readily available, the marketplace gets easier to accept. It's, hey, if I can have a robot that I can move by my hand, I don't have to program a robot. I don't need to understand code. I need to teach this the way a human does it. It opens up at least the thinking, the opportunity to kind of thinking of a small manufacturer, mom and pop shop, a job shop, who's going to run, I'm going to make 100 of these parts for the week. I'm going to make 100 of these other parts for the week. That allows putting a collaborative robot in front of that machine to tend that CNC machine. Now they can run that overnight. I can double my production just by able to run it overnight. Keep my people on staff even, for my day shift. Who wants to work night shift? Do you want to work night shift? No. Otherwise, we'd be doing this at night. Maybe that's nighttime PM happy hour.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, this is good for a nighttime activity, not working in the factory per se.
Right.
So you got me thinking about collaborative robots when we were talking about the restaurant example. Can you share, because I think cobots are a very new concept to a lot of people, right? They still think it's something that, oh yeah, I've seen that, but I don't really know how it works. What are the sweet spots for cobots right now?
Sure. Cobots really, when you think about it, I can go into technical terms, but I'm going to use my regular everyday terms. If you've got people working around something moving that might, poke you and punch you, you want it to stop at a safe distance. You want it to be able to, operate quote unquote safely. You want to make sure no one's going to get hurt. The industry has gone through safety standards and the design standards so that doesn't happen with these quote unquote cobots, right? So what are the sweet spots for it? I have people working around, there's an application today. There's a certain marketplace where there's a lot of fine assembly and you got one person kind of doing the same thing, hurting their fingers and their hands all day long. Perfect application for a cobot, but why? Why not just a regular industrial robot? Because people are walking around this thing all day long. So when you got a lot of people, a lot of foot traffic, perfect spot for a cobot for sure. But to be honest, there's a lot of cobot applications where somebody says, hey, let me put a cobot in there, and us as a manufacturer or the system integrator will say, great, we'll look at that, and then we'll actually determine, hey, that's actually not a safe application. There's the age-old, analogy, you put a knife on the end of a cobot, it's no longer safe. It's very true, right? Spinning disc going at 3,000 miles, RPM, that's not going to work either, right? So is it truly a safe? Look at the tooling. Is the tooling safe? Blah, blah, blah. But when's a good place for a cobot? You got a lot of people working around there. That's a good spot for a cobot. It's nice. Could be slow. That's a good, technical spot for it.
Your knife example was actually, it brought back a memory. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was at a very large razor manufacturer for shavers, and they were using collaborative robots to pick these razors out of a machine, swing them around, and then put them in the packaging. And I said, guys, just because it's a cobot doesn't mean it's a safe application when you have open razors swinging around. That brought back a really funny memory. My next question for you is, in a lot of applications of automation, robots are just part of the solution of the general system that we're building out in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
What new technologies are you seeing in advance that are allowing robots now to enter these new industries?
Sure.
So, before a robot just did pick and placing because we just had a basic end of arm tooling. What else is out there that's creating new opportunity?
So, there's sensing technology, right? So there's vision and touch sensing technologies. They've been out there, but they've been getting cheaper and smaller and faster processing. So we've had vision cameras telling robots to avoid here and go here, right? Even doing on-the-fly kind of adjust my program. I've got something moving and I want to follow it, and I've been able to do this for 15 years. But the cost of that was running 8 computers at the same time and $1 million. So when, a certain gaming company came out with a certain camera where you could dance, and do that thing and it would follow you.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I think our audience does too. Yeah.
So that technology, that's a good example of one marketplace completely creating an enabling device that us industry folks took those software people and said, hey, can we do something with this? I'm actually now putting this on a robot. So I got to go to one of these facilities. It had been 2012, 2011. And this is a government research facility, bringing industry people in there. And they were showing us stuff they were doing with these, follow me very fast kind of technology. And they were posing the question, could this be now added to those factories? How do I have something go on a shelf and just kind of navigate and pick something off of there? Now that was that's 10 years ago. But 10 years ago, you take, certain laws and how things go faster and smaller over time and cheaper. Now there's technology sensors where instead of light curtains and standard industry safety systems, there's a company out there who has a sensor that can detect how fast you're moving and how fast a robot's moving, and that they're going through safety approvals to make sure that that's actually bought per all the standards, but the tech's there for that robot to detect, depending on how fast you're moving and how fast I'm moving, whether or not I'm gonna, make your day, basically.
Yeah, I like how video games and entertainment are leading into manufacturing applications. The way Jake posed that last question, I feel like we were really focused around the opportunities around robotics. Let's talk about some of the challenges that robotics are addressing. And I'm going to preface this with saying that we talk about the workforce challenge all day long.
Sure.
I think we know that robots are an answer to help us address the workforce issue. What's another issue or challenge that you don't think gets talked about enough that robots are helping address?
Sure. Besides workforce, there's always quality. Now I'm searching for, what's the thing that's never talked about? That's the secret sauce that should be talked about when it comes to robotics.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. Part of that's like, where is it not applied today where it could be applied besides just replacing labor?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This is way, way out there, right? In terms of adoption rates now.
Okay.
Given the amount of robots that are out there, if more companies actually adopted and invested in robots, what would be happening to the cost of products, the overall state of living? More people may be looking for other avenues and jobs. There's certain books that have been written that we may be at that point of the precipice where you'd say enough robots, a critical mass of manufacturing has now adopted automation such that what would people then be doing to make a living?
Sure.
You may be going back to another swing of the Renaissance where there was more creative and more arts potentially. So, all right, it's way far out maybe answer to the question of, what's something that has been thought about.
I'm okay where you went. It is happy hour.
It is happy hour, right?
There. Yeah. I like how we're leaning on that as a crutch throughout this conversation.
Yeah, that was a good justification for a really crappy answer, basically.
No,
Jerry, where are we going to go with this?
I like getting out there with that answer a little bit. I wouldn't mind a return to the arts a little bit, like the Renaissance era and things like that. But I thought you went a good direction at the start as well, talking about quality and things like that, right? You look around this conference, right? We're really talking a lot about workforce, the challenges that we're having filling all those jobs. I think it's cool to get some additional perspectives on just, hey, workforce isn't the only issue. It's not the only opportunity or challenge out there. There are other things that automation and robotics are doing in that regard. But this isn't an interview with me. This is an interview with you. I'm going to hand it back to Jake, and I can tell you have a few more thoughts there, Jerry.
I'd add a little bit to that if I were to say this right now, there's other things you could say. Great, what about robots here and there? Currently today, there's such a it's such a crisis. There's such a crisis in the demand that we currently had. We've gone from our production to record rates, literally record rates. We're about to increase in 1.5 times more in our factories. And that's, past capacity. We're now looking at building more. This is just, it's the demand is getting so much higher and we're still not filling it. Still, after 2.5 years of record demand, we're still 30% in some cases where they can't fill jobs, fill roles. So in some senses, there's still just immediate need. We kind of have to get out of it to see where that next frontier might be. Is it going to be inside of automating, again, lower cost robots in that service sector? When am I going to get that Rosie? Is that going to be out there in the future? So to be honest, I think it's hard for me to look outside of what this current need is, right? Where else are we not thinking about so far? Because there's just such a current crisis.
To add on to your question, Chris, I look at, what robotics are solving. They are solving the labor shortage. They are improving the quality, but I think they're really helping in a lot of areas in terms of cost of scale and being able to deliver product to the market at a much lower cost so the average consumer can partake in the joys of what that brings. When you look at a TV 15 or 20 years ago, if you were to go to South by Southwest and get a 30-inch flat screen TV, you were paying thousands of dollars. Now I can go on Amazon and pick it up for $69. And that's the solution because that technology has advanced in such a way where we can produce that product at such a low cost. And that is because we can automate the production of those components. That's what's driving that down. But as well, we're at a conference that has a lot of medical stuff. And I see the medical industry, as they produce new ways or new solutions to help people with their health, they're then turning to automation in a way that allows you to do all these precision manufacturing processes that you were never able to achieve through just labor. The labor might be there, but the labor might not ever be capable of creating that type of product.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I mean, they're in the medical device field, right? So you can get surgery done where they don't cut you open anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Hasn't happened to me yet.
Well, it actually happened to my father. So he went in for, originally a cardiovascular for a stent, and then he ended up doing a triple bypass. But it was one of those things is the procedure of that automation being built. There was actually a robot that was helping him during his surgery to make that whole process a lot easier. So it just talks about how automation is impacting people's lives. Going back to that earlier conversation, beyond just automation, they're helping keep people alive in a lot of senses.
Absolutely. I mean, not just alive, but you get back out after surgery. There's outpatient surgery that happens today that was never outpatient surgery because there's high precision, nanometer type machining, little tools that happen with robot automation. You can walk down one of these aisles here and hit 3 companies that do that. And that wasn't happening even 10 years ago today, right? But I have a question for you. Do you have a 30-inch TV in your home? Who has a
No, well, I have a 30-inch TV in my shed in my backyard. I think the other smallest TV is probably about 60 or 70 inches. Yeah.
Because the cost came down,
because
right?
the cost is just massively decreased, right? You can go buy a 60-inch for a couple $100 these days.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I moved into a new house. We had a 30-inch TV, one of those you get free when you buy a couch.
Yeah.
It was on top of the mantle.
Next to the microwave that you can get, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, next to the microwave that was also free. I'm watching that thing, and they literally were like, let's get the new TV. And it was huge. Like, who's buying these 30-inch TVs? I digress.
I believe the place for the 30-inch TV is in the kitchen. That I feel like it's a good kitchen size TV, at least in my opinion. Hey, I was going to save this question for the end, but this is a very important question that you just brought up with all this television talk. My question is, who is your favorite pop culture robot?
My favorite pop culture robot. For real? Oh, man.
You talked about Rosie a couple times.
Yeah.
You keep making the references.
I know. Rosie. What's I grew up with the Jetsons. I grew up with the Jetsons and, what was the little guy's name who would yell and
Oh, the dog?
Hey, he made the cogs. He worked for the... No, he's the bald little guy, the angry guy.
Spacely Sprockets?
Spacely Sprockets. That's the one. Spacely. Yeah. He's not a robot guy, but we're talking about Rosie. My favorite, okay. Let's see. I like iRobot.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's my favorite. But the fact that one robot stood for the rest of the robots and there was a good one, against all that code in a factory made by robots. I love that movie. Maybe not that one. It's kind of like murdered robots. And it's a movie that I would show to high school kids all the time to talk about robots. Because you always say, what robots do you know? iRobots, and I play the scene from that movie where they say, that actor comes out and Will Smith says, robots making robots, and that's just stupid. And then I cut to the video of my factory of robots making robots, and the kids are completely freaked out. And they say Skynet is coming. I'm like, yeah, it's already here.
Maybe
you should get a job in robots.
Recruit the next generation to get into
fear.
robotics.
It worked with me,
I love it. I love it. I'm going to give a shout out to Wally on my end. Jake, you probably have a favorite of yours as well.
If we're just doing robots in general, R2-D2 was one. I think it's something I could definitely fall back on. If it was something newer, maybe Ultron in the Marvel movies, because he's a full robot. So maybe a little old school, little new school with those answers.
I like the world destruction robot theme. You clearly
Ultron,
we're right there with that.
Robot is one. So here's my next question. Let's dive back into workforce for a second. What is Fanuc doing to help drive and educate? What's the goal of putting a lot of robots in high schools and colleges, that when we go into facilities, we see a lot of Fanuc robots, a lot of LR mates, a lot of CRXs. What is that goal that Fanuc really wants to achieve?
Sure. It's that filling that gap in the workforce, that skill set. That's many years ago, we started that investment. Having over 1,400 different schools, universities, training centers. We have a whole department, whole distribution network for that market alone. Part of that's knowing that the next workforce has to get trained. Part of that's a great business model. Let me train my future generation in a certain type of robot programming. But a big part of that is our big belief that in the early 2000s, when that big gap was coming, we started our investment into that education market. And that is because how do you fill the workforce gap? You fill the gap. You got to have programs. You have to have places people go to, curriculums. And that was, it's a huge market out there. And now we've got the 1,400 plus, local educations, universities, training centers, and some of these are in high schools now. High schools are now starting to develop their own education programs. So why did we do that? I think part of that is, yes, we wanted to know to fill the gap, but part of that's a smart play. And that's all of the industry that was using those robots. There was a request at some point, hey, where do we go for training? We can create that gap there, and it's over many, many years, and it continues to grow, not just into this country. Now we're starting to, how do we expand that now into, outside of just the U.S. alone?
So we're getting to the bottom of our figurative Irish whiskey glasses here. We're towards the end of the interview. So.
I don't see mine, but okay.
I said figurative, right? I said figurative. Yeah, there will be real glasses soon, right? It's the afternoon. But, I've got a couple final questions here. Jake, I'll pass it off to you after this. But one that's on my mind is, hey, we're here at IME West. A lot of our industry knows this as ATX West. Yeah, when I was in San Francisco, I would come down here all the time for this show. What's one of the best conversations you've had here today at the show?
I think one of my best I had today was learning about companies working together. So this automation market, here you've got you're at a show where you've got multiple markets coming together. Our industry has gotten mature. We were just talking today about how in the early 2000s, it was all about just convincing companies to use robots, and there was an education phase. Now there's so many companies you can go to find a solution. Now it's which one do I choose? And some of these companies, it's, go over the last 10 years, how many mergers and acquisitions have happened? The same faces, the different places, and boy, you can't tick off somebody, because I think the saying was, if I get it wrong, we just said this at lunch, you can't step on somebody's toes because those toes might be part of the that you have to kiss later on, something like that, right? But that's just the maturity of this marketplace where there's a lot more working together. There's always going to be competition. If you're my competitor, I'm going to want to beat you. But at the same time, I worked with you 5 years ago. There's more of that collaboration that I think in today's day and age, if you want to have a company actually, hey, I want to go through digital transformation, AGVs, MIRs, Cobots on material moving. And then I have machine tending. I have assembly processes that I need humans to do, but I don't know exactly where to start. It's not one company that does all those things. It is a team of companies. And truth be told, a lot of these companies here, we've worked together one way or another. So I think some of the conversations I've had here have been about Yeah, I worked with them before. We're starting to collaborate. We're starting to see more collaboration, I think, which is going to fill the need in the marketplace to meet this crisis critical need. That I'm curious to see what may happen out of that given 2 or 3 more years with companies starting to merge, even bigger integrators and technology starting to cross-function here.
Awesome. I have one more question, and I'll let Chris wrap it up. As we're moving into more of a social media-based industry, people are getting more content. They're getting more information online through YouTube, through Twitter, through LinkedIn, all these other places. What could manufacturing companies do better to really engage in that, I would say, kids still in middle school and under? Right? The manufacturing space isn't something that's going to completely attract them yet. But what could we do to get them excited about joining our industry?
TikTok dances.
Robot TikTok dances.
No, human TikTok dances for people like you right now doing a TikTok dance. They would get like at least 1,000 views, and everyone here would probably watch that and download it and like it, and then forward it on. We could probably do a channel like, Jake, and you doing a TikTok dance. Look, it's kind of half serious, but that generation, that's what they do. It's not, I don't want to, okay, truth be told, those videos of those, 1,000-ton whatever hydraulic presses and seeing all the things that mushes and whatever, I'm interested in that. Maybe like little videos of really cool things that just gauge someone's interest, not just hey, I'm picking up this cup and I'm taking it out of a machine. More of those fun applications, absolutely. If you're going to market to that young group, it's what they know. They know fantasy. They know cool things. And I think, if anything, it might be something like that. Let's have a little bit more fun kind of short videos.
Excellent answer. Hey, we really appreciate having you up here, Jerry. You've done a great job, and we even have some beers getting staged for us right now at the end of this interview. So
thank you. It's good thing these are non-alcoholic. I appreciate that.
Hey, it's part of the beer crawl at this point, so I think we got some genuine ones. So cheers.
It's not Irish or whiskey, but I'll take it. Thank you.
So final question's a two-parter. You've been a great sport with us today, Jerry. Is there anything you wish we would have asked you or something that you wish we would have talked about that we didn't yet?
Your caps. I was going to bring a Detroit Tigers cap and make you wear one. That is 100%. You can ask, we're going to talk about that. Let's talk about something besides, let's talk about that.
I'm a Cardinals fan. I'll hand it to Jake, who's the only one here wearing a hat today.
So, obviously Chicago Cubs, and you're welcome. If you're a Tigers fan, you're welcome for Javier Baez, bringing him on board. You guys have some good teammates now.
Yeah. Like I said, caring and sharing, right? It's a whole new world now.
The Cubs were just so great. That's why we had to completely break up our team and give our players to the rest of the league.
Yeah, that's the next thing. Baseball with robots. We've wanted to see it for years.
Honestly, they could get rid of those umpires and go to automated umpiring.
No, I want robots, but human umpires. That's what I want. What would happen?
Yeah,
it's a strike. The robot's like, no, it's not.
All right, it's robots in general. It's exciting. It's actually closer than that. First Robotics, is something that's awesome in high school. And 2 million kids right now are actually building robots to compete against each other to get excited about manufacturing. So and it's happening right now. If people are listening to this podcast from the audience, go look up at First Robotics and go check out a robot competition. You'll be amazed what 13, 14, and 15-year-olds are making.
They are. It's incredible. They're taking those sensors that those expensive companies spent millions of dollars on. We sponsor our own robot camps and things like that. We had 7-year-olds building their own self-driving car. And that was ridiculous for me to see. I think part of it, here's me at a serious topic is, look, you don't necessarily need what you might think is that standard educational track to get into robots and automation. You can go through, a robot camp, go through First Robotics, and you've got a lot of the skill sets that major companies are hiring today. If there was a place to go into is a lot of these pent-up communities that have talent and the work ethic, and whether it be First Robotics or any Lego League or whatever there is, completely get into that. Donate. I feel like it's the Bob Barker part where it's like, donate to your local, invest into, Anyways, but I'm not sure where that came from, but First Robotics.
Hey, that's the sidebar conversations that evolve towards the end of the interview are always some of the best. Where's the bet? Where can we find Fanuc? What's the booth number?
That
Fanuc,
is a-
Fanuc. I knew I was going to go back to that at the end of it.
You know, those are things that I probably should know, and I will tell you. Hold on. I have to get my prop. It doesn't say on here, but you'd go to the website and you'd look up Fanuc Robotics and you'd be able to find us on the great IME West search tool for your Find Your Booth.
Perfect.
We can edit that in later, right? Booth number.
Oh, absolutely. And for anyone that listens to this podcast after the fact, manufacturinghappyhour.com. Lots of great spots to connect with you after the show is over as well. And with that, hey, we just want to say cheers to all of you. Thanks for listening today and enjoy the rest of the show. And Jerry,
Cheers.
thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Yep. Thanks, fellas.